we are happy to see that we have so many people attending the webinar today. And we have a speaker, Mr. Roy Maxwell, from the data centers, the Kevlin's data centers. And Roy, he will talk about sustainable data centers and how is it possible that all the green data centers create new career paths, new jobs. And that is the topic of today that Mr. Roy Maxwell will present to you guys. Before we actually start the presentation from Mr. Maxwell, I will talk a little about introduction to what we are doing in the SETSA project. And we actually have some recent findings from our colleagues in Portugal, from ETLA in Portugal, that they have been doing some research in what are the competency needs in the data center industry in Europe. And the research findings are very interesting and relevant to mention in this context. And why are we doing SETSA? It's because we have a lot of data center operators in Europe who have actually difficulties in finding qualified staff, and we also have a demographic problem. And we have a huge growth in the industry, and we are expected to grow. The industry in Europe is expected to grow up to 110% in parts of Europe by 2030. But the awareness about the careers in the sector remains remarkably low, and that's why we actually created the SETSA project to meet this challenge. And so we have a clear mission to build the awareness of the data center industry and why it's so important in the digital future of Europe. So what we will do is in the SETSA project is to support education and learning journeys that match real world needs. And of course, that is shortly a big challenge, but we have a collaborative network across Europe. And we also have good contacts to a lot of industry operators in the industry. And what we are trying to achieve now is also to connect very closely to the industry partners through networks in each country. And so we are preparing the students for a lot of interesting jobs in this industry. And what I will briefly want to share with you is some of our recent findings from the SETSA project. It's some of the first conclusions from a brand new baseline measurement report. And the report was based on 41 company survey responses and 27 qualitative interviews. And all those data actually provided a solid and nuanced picture of the competency needs in the data center industry across Europe. And I listed 5 areas of findings here that actually point to some interesting stuff that also is interesting for you guys as students and also lecturers. And the first one is a T-shaped professional. What is happening right now is that going from isolated specialist, the industry are asking for more hybrid profiles. So that means that actually you need to have something horizontal, cross-disciplinary awareness about power, cooling, IT security, and networking, and so. And that is the broad, the horizontal stuff. But you also need some vertical stuff, specialized mastery, and a specific technical craft. And that is one of the findings from this survey that we made. And another thing is that we have to break the silos. All students need to learn the basics of power, cooling, security, and networking. And then also, they also need to specialize in a specific technical track. And that will ensure that all team members speak the same language across different departments in a data center. And also what the survey and the research also make clear is that we have to go beyond soft skills Procedural discipline should be treated as a core technical subject, and we have to focus on standard operating procedures and methods of procedure, and that is also a very operational discipline, but we need that in the industry. That is what the research tells us. And also closing the IT infrastructure gap is one of the findings from the research. The IT professionals must understand the physical consequences of software deployments, and especially when we talk about AI clusters, how do they impact UPS load and cooling redundancy? So and in that area, there are new requirements popping up, and some of the areas are DCIM, Data Center Infrastructure Management competences, and also physical air literacy is essential for IT professionals working in the industry. And also, least but not, this point is also quite interesting in relation to what Roy Maxwell is talking about today, is foundations when we talk about regulation. Some of the ISO standards and NIST 2 and so on are no longer optional electives. They is something that is part of a daily operational etiquette in the industry. And also sustainability as a technical competency. It means that you have to move away from theoretical goals to technical challenges in reporting and in efficiency. And also energy reuse technologies and data reporting proficiency required according to the ED, this directive. And the last point is that the industry actually are looking out for competences and students who actually have practice-based learning. And what we could see is that we have to deliver on hands-on experience in safe lab-scale mini data centers. And in that aspect, the students could build operational confidence by simulating critical tasks. We're already doing that in some parts of our educational system, but of course we can improve on that. And using high-fidelity simulation could improve the students' competences in that aspect as well. So, well, that was some of the parts we have found in the research, and now I will give the word to Mr. Roy Maxwell.
Lars, thanks very much. Let me just share my screen. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this. I'm delighted to be here today, actually, to have the opportunity to speak to you all, to talk about sustainable data centers. I've spent a career in IT in the last 25 years in data centers, which has been a great career, and I'm keen to enthuse, hopefully yourselves, with some of the opportunity that exists out there. So this is my agenda for today. I'm going to spin through this pretty rapidly. We don't have a lot of time. I'd encourage you, if you have any questions, write them down, stick them in the chat box. I'm more than happy to answer any questions at the end. But without further ado, I'm just going to get on with it and talk about who are Kevlinks, what is it we do. So Kevlinks are a wholesale operator. We design, build and operate purpose-built data centers specifically for AI compute and high density workloads, although not entirely all. The market is changing rapidly with the onset of AI. And to give you an idea, when I first got into data centers, then a 19-inch rack would probably draw about 2 kilowatts. About 5, 6 years ago, that maybe raised maybe to 10. There were outliers that would have a lot more. But just in the last few years, we've gone to racks that demand 40 kilowatts, and then it rose to 76 kilowatts. And now we're at 138 kilowatts, and we have a roadmap to 400, and from there to a megawatt per rack. So that gives you an idea of the massive changes that's happening in our industry right now. And that is creating huge amounts of opportunity. And the other thing I should say is that what we're building is, as much as we possibly can, is sustainable data centers. And we are a European company. We're not an American company. We built our first facility in Brussels, and I'll describe that a little bit for you. We intend to build more across Europe, probably in places like Italy, Spain, Austria, Germany, the usual kind of places you would expect. But I'm going to focus on the first one we built in part here. So this is actually a picture of what we built. As ever with data centers, it's not the prettiest of buildings. Some might say it looks like a prison. And this is part of the reason why a lot of people really don't understand what we do. We have, as an industry, been quite secretive in the past. We build big buildings that draw a lot of power, look a bit like a prison, very secure, and people don't know what we do. And so part of today is for me to try and explain what we do in a bit more detail. And just to give you a bit more sense about this building, we've created what's called a digital twin. So that's taken BIM models, it's taken Revit models, all sorts of design documentation, and produced a 3D image or model of our entire data center. And what I'm going to show you, I can't show you the live model because my PC won't actually run it. I need a specialized machine for that. But I'll show you a video of it, and we can talk through what we're showing. And the aim is to connect our digital twin to live data. So let me just show you this. So this is going to spin along in the background here. This is the data center in model form. And you can see from this that we've taken the Google Maps background here and put our data center in the middle of it. And we can show all the different elements of it. So we're showing here the car park. We might use this for customers at some stage to show them this kind of detail, where the goods in are. And you can see that this is all to scale, and there's a huge amount of detail here. Once we attach the live data, we'll be able to show things like battery rooms, exactly what's happening in them. So that's what you're seeing here as we move through. You can see other elements in the top here. This is a substation. And then we can also drill into that. We can show what's inside the building. It'll show you a little bit more of this in a minute. We go to the rooftop view of some of the assets we've got here. So this shows you the server halls. These first ones are air cooled. This one here is liquid cooling in that air hall. And all of this will be live shortly. And we'll be able to show our customers and also visitors what we're doing. And it also means we can run the data center and provide the data. So we're going into things like chillers here, generators. Again, the data will be live. It'll show the power draw, it'll show the cooling, it'll show what's happening in data halls, and it will show how we're using as efficiently as we can all the energy, water that we might need to use. And I'll get on to a bit more about this kind of stuff in the background. So you can see here we're using X-Cool air handling units. That's how much detail we've got. It'll show you here, that's the fire extinguisher systems. We can light those up. In a minute, we'll show you the power. That's where all the power is taken to the bottom of the racks and delivered to every single element of our building. And we're measuring and monitoring all of this real time in the facility for everything that moves. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute or two as well. But this is just to give you an idea of what it is we've built and what we'll continue to build across Europe. And we're about to stop this. Music should fade out. So that's what we built. And I'll talk a little bit about who I am and what I do. So I mentioned I've been in this business for 40 years, but I never had a plan to go into IT, and certainly not data centers. And that's a recurring theme of people in the industry. And again, it's this lack of education on our part over the years to people to say this is a great business to be in. And I kind of get into it because I like computer games. That's why I get into IT. And data centers, I get into that because I was asked by a bank to turn around a failing business in Edinburgh around about 2002, just after the dot-com bubble burst. And I was only planning to do it for, a couple of years. But as I get more involved in the business, I just get more and more entranced with what is a critical part of our infrastructure. I discovered that it was a business that was incredibly sticky, that you had everybody whose data was really important ended up in a data center, even 20 odd years ago. So we had the police in that data center, we had blood transfusion. So Scottish operations in hospitals couldn't, well, they could, they'd have to go back to paper if we failed. And I loved the fact that, this was critical. So we couldn't afford to fail. And then I discovered that actually, if we became involved in sustainability and the more efficient we were, then the less energy we used. And so I built a new data center there for Sky, and they moved their back-end systems from Amsterdam to Scotland. And we targeted back then a PUE, which is a kind of benchmark about how efficient you are. The lower the number, the better. And back then, Google were building data centers at 1.3 PUE, and that was our target. And that's actually what we delivered. And it was back then that I discovered that I really wanted to get involved in making data centers more sustainable and getting more involved. And it was interesting, Lars was talking about people having this cross-skilled view of data centers. And I wasn't a specialist when I get involved in data centers. I'd worked in IT in a broad sense. I was a salesman originally. But what I loved was I get involved in every different part of data centers, and they interlock. The cooling affects the energy, that affects, UPSs, it affects all the different parts of the business. And so I decided that I would take a course and get more involved in that as our business grew. And so I went to, as it happened, I went to Oxford Business School and did a course in sustainability. But I'd spent years getting a background across everything, but decided to focus on sustainability because I believed it was really, really important. So data center, I've kind of talked a bit about data centers, and I presume that you know what they are, but I've got a short video I want to play for you. So the EU Data Center Association, which we're part of, created this video, and it's really, and my apologies to some people who may know this, but for those that don't, it's a kind of quick overview in 2 minutes. This is what data centers are about. So let me just play this for you. If I can get this to start, there we go.
Every day, nearly all of us use data centers without realizing it. Right from the moment we wake up, as we get ready for the day, all through our morning commute, while at work, till you call it a day, even when you are on holiday, figuring your way around or trying to use the local language. And all this is possible through a maze of technologies that we usually don't see inside data centers. Almost every website and app on your smartphone today stores and processes its data in a data center. Not just individuals, but nearly every industry and organization, hospitals, universities, airports, government ministries, mobile phone companies, online stores, transport systems, banks, supermarkets, you name it. They all rely on data centers to work. Simply put, a data center is where the internet and the cloud live. It's in operation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Data centers are connected to global communication networks, using fiber optic cables underground and under the sea. and they contain a multitude of computer servers and data storage equipment that have been optimized for reliability, security, and energy efficiency. To do this, data centers use around 3% of electricity in Europe, which is far less power than the alternatives, like running the same equipment in smaller and less efficient buildings, or going analog. Data centers are energy efficient by design and are at the forefront of sustainability efforts, such as reusing their excess heat and directly financing the expansion of renewables. Europe's largest data center operators and cloud providers came together to form the climate-neutral Data Center Pact, committing to ambitious efficiency targets, as well as to using 100% renewable energy by 2030. And if you think none of this affects you, well, you just used a data center to watch this video.
So I hope that was interesting and informative for most of you. I think what's interesting here is that the EU and the UK have now designated all data centers above a certain size, I think it's 500 kilowatts in Europe, as critical infrastructure that must be energy efficient and sustainable. And so that really was brought about during COVID, and everybody realized how important data centers were, that without them, things would just have stopped. And so that made a massive difference. And now with the onset of AI, that is just increasing at an ever-increasing pace as well. And the point here is that careers exist across all sorts of different tracks. And I'm going to talk a bit about that for you now as well. So before I do, I just want to talk about growth. So you can see that the industry and what it's doing. And on the left there, you'll see a whole load of headlines as I talk. Our industry has been growing for 25 years, but in the last 5, with the advent of AI, it has just been huge. So if you look at the stats, we're going to increase by 33 gigawatts globally by 27. We're looking at 4.2 gigawatts in Europe alone. Now that's enormous. In Belgium alone, from 91 megawatts in 24 to 344 megawatts by 2031. And you'll see some of the numbers over there on the left. They're huge numbers. To give you an idea, a megawatt is probably going to cost between 8 and 10 million euros to build. And you can see there's billions in the left here. This is a hugely growing industry. There's a vast amount of money going into it. And people are just betting the farm on it, if you like. And I left the last one to SpaceX and Elon Musk. And the reason for that is that they're now talking about data centers in space. And when I started out, this was a pipe dream. 3 years ago, I was speaking to the Scottish government to tell them about how it might work. And now we're seeing people actually planning for this. So you can see that the growth is not just in, Europe, it's way beyond that. So what that tells you is this is an industry that's going to scale over time, looking for long-term growth. There's long-term jobs in here. So it's a fantastic thing to be looking at right now. So let me just kind of run you through the link between sustainability and jobs. If I look at efficiency is now a design requirement. It's not a nice to have anymore. When you reduce electrical losses, optimize cooling and right-size capacity for AI loads, you need specialists at every stage. So we're talking there about electrical and mechanical engineers to design it, commissioning teams to prove it, and operations engineers to maintain it. That end-to-end efficiency cycle is creating long-term roles. So it's not just one-off projects. And then you've got measuring this. So regulation, and in particular in the EU, the Energy Efficiency Directive is turning regulation and turning sustainability into reportable performance discipline. In the EU, operators are going to have to measure and report KPIs like power efficiency, which is PUE, water efficiency, which is WUE, and energy reuse factors, renewable energy factors, and detailed breakdowns of energy used by cooling, power distribution, and IT. So there's an annual submission deadline and a central European database for the EED to report against. And that compliance rhythm is funding permanent jobs in metering, is telemetry, data engineering, sustainability analytics, and ESG reporting. And these are new disciplines relatively to what we're doing. They've been there before, but not in a regulated way. So clean, auditable data is now becoming like a license to operate it. Without it, people like us won't gain customers. So it's hugely important, and the jobs in them are incredibly important. We're also looking at the carbon-free energy and renewable energy. And it's not just running low carbon. It's not just buying green certificates. We need specialists to structure things like power purchase agreements, to evaluate 24/7 carbon-free supply, look at balance intermittency with on-site storage or flexible operations. And these are creating roles for energy procurement managers, carbon accountants, market analysts, and control engineers who are integrating these renewables with the facility's load profiles. I'd mentioned water before. Water is now a really important KPI. You'll have seen in the press lots of stories about the vast amount of water that data centers use. Typically, to be fair, this is in the States. In Europe, we're far more meager with our use of water. And AI itself kind of promotes the use of closed loop cool liquid cooling. And so that in itself means we will use less water. But, we measure WE, which is water use effectiveness. We track the source and discharge quality, design cooling to minimize potable water use. And that's creating demand for mechanical HVAC engineers who can deliver efficient thermal systems, plus environmental managers who monitor usage reporting and community impact. And then a particular interest of mine is heat reuse as a resource. So for years, we've created waste heat, it's called. I'd prefer to call it green waste heat. So you have other industries like the district heating companies all over Europe. And those guys have traditionally used heat sources that came from fossil fuels. But they also are regulated under the EED, and they are targeted with using green energy, green sources of waste heat. And that's what data centers produce. So there's a fantastic synergy to allow us to capture low-grade heat and deliver it to district networks for nearby users, for hospitals, for business, for residential. And that all requires thermal engineers. It requires municipal partnership managers. It requires a whole load new skill sets, which we don't currently have. And then there's the combination of technical integration and then EED-driven expectations as well. So the cities of over 30,000, even large towns, need to have a heating and cooling plan. And that's driven by the EED and the EU. And so even the cities and the operators are hiring for heat reuse engineers right now. And to go on again, circularity, most of the facility's lifetime carbon is embedded in materials. And as we build, we create a life cycle carbon assessment. And that is looking at the materials we use, raw materials, how we choose those. We're trying to make sure that they've got the lowest embodied carbon in the products that we create, in the M&E, the mechanical and engineering equipment that we use, all the way through from its design, its planning, its construction, its operational use, through to decommissioning at the end. And we do that in a number of different ways. And that by reducing that footprint, this has created an entire industry here of roles in life cycle carbon assessment, in sustainable procurement, in its decommissioning and reuse. and people who can specify low carbon concrete steel, track product passports. Every product now is a passport that tells you exactly what it's made up of. That's from concrete through to light switches, doors, you name it, everything. It's an environmental product description, an EPD, and there's jobs there as well. And then there's jobs in planning second life strategies for equipment. So these are everywhere. And this last bit, governance and certification, Lars touched on this before about ISO standards. So we need to prove the claims that we make, that we are sustainable and that we're green. Many industries greenwash about what they do, but as an industry, we love speeds and feeds. We love data. And so we can prove what it is we're doing and how we're changing. And we do that by implementing things like ISO 27001 for security, but there's also ISO 9001, 14001, 5001 for energy management, for example. And then there's benchmarking, such things as GRESB and CDP. And all of those things mean that we're creating an environment where we can prove what we do. And over and above that, we have customers who also perform due diligence on us and our stats. And all of that means that we need more ESG managers, auditors, and program owners who maintain evidence trails, pass audits, and keep scores year on year. And governance is the glue that keeps all of this technical progress credible. So you can see that there's a number of different tracks here, all with different types of job, all which are interlocking, which are hugely important. And so these are at kind of granular level, some of the names that you will see for these roles. And then also the career spread. And this is just kind of illustrative, because people say that there's not many jobs in data centers. But you would be surprised in the data center ecosystem. So those people that help plan, design, build, operate, and decommission. That encompasses, everything from planning, permitting, architects, engineering, manufacturing, construction, mechanical engineering. There is a huge amount of jobs that are all clustered around these buildings, and they are long-term jobs, and they're jobs that pay well. And so you can see some of these are new kind of to our industry, certification specialist, heat reuse specialist. We weren't talking about this 10 years ago. We weren't even talking about 5 years ago. And these are different skill sets across different types of courses that you guys may be taking. And even down to, my role there, sales. Sales doesn't, sales requires the ability to interact with people. But even now, you need to be technical to understand this. And there are great roles there as well. And you can see also things like finance and legal. And I touched on pay, because pay is important. That's part of why you do a job. You also do it because hopefully you enjoy your job and you love it. But being paid well helps as well. So you can see from this, and DataX is a company that has created this report. They're actually a recruitment company, believe it or not, and they look at how much are people getting paid globally and then across Europe. And so this is just to give you an idea of the average permanent salary for these roles. And you can see that 116,000 euros per year is the European average. A little bit less in Spain, and I think that will change, and a bit more in Norway. And some of that is down to location and taxation and all those kind of things. But the important thing here is that the entry-level roles are 50 to 80. That's a significant sum for a first job. When I had my first job, I think it was £8,000 I earned a year, and I was delighted. But it's not just about pay, it's also about retention. It's about the culture, and it's about growth and training for people. And you can see that there is progression can be rapid. And part of that is down to the makeup of the existing people that are in this sector, because we haven't advertised it well. And there are a lot of people who are, frankly, my age, And if you look at it, most of our industry report difficulty in finding qualified candidates. 58% of companies like Kevlinks are having trouble. You've got the Uptime Institute. They're a global benchmarking business, and they've forecast what they call a silver tsunami of retirements. And that's because most of the people in this industry have been in it for more than 20 years. 40% of the existing workforce are projected to retire within the next 5 years. That's a stunning statistic. And I've put up here our core team because Kevlinks are delighted that we've got young people in our team. And you probably look at that and think they're all old. But to us, they're young. They're the lifeblood that we need to keep this industry moving. And we need people like yourselves as well. We need new entrants that will come into our industry and provide fresh idea and fresh impetus to what we do. So I'm going to wrap up and just say the last thing I want to say here is that this isn't some kind of theoretical thing that will happen in 5 years. This is absolutely right now. You have a sector that rewards people that want to learn, that are team builders, that perform well under a critical environment. There are job pathways for all sorts of people, which I think is just fantastic. And there's a huge demand as we scale, as you saw earlier for some of the stats that I showed, as we scale across Europe, we're going to need more and more people. And I've quoted Jensen Huang. He's an important guy. He runs NVIDIA, who are arguably one of the foremost companies driving AI right now. And he's talking about this is the largest infrastructure build out in human history. He calls it a 5-layer cake. And what he's talking about there is it's a broad expanse of jobs and opportunity that this right now entails. And it's going to continue this way, I think, for at least the next 5 to 10 years at this pace. At some stage, it will have to plateau off, but it's not going to change. So I would encourage you to look at what SEDSI are doing about the routes that they're providing into this sector, and also explore hands-on experiences with trainees and internships, which organizations like ours provide and offer. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop sharing and pass it back to Lars and the team.
Yeah, thank you very much, Roy. Thank you for your presentation and the insights from your huge experience from the industry. And I'm sure we have a lot of questions to you from the audience. I can see on the chat that there are some questions here already. I take it from the first question I see in the chat here is there is a guy, it's Bart, is asking about there's a fair amount of focus going into digital sovereignty. How do sovereignty and sustainability coexist and or go hand in hand?
It's an interesting question. Data sovereignty is driven in part by location. So do you own and fully control where your data is? Can anybody else potentially take control of your data? And that has, I think, been brought to the fore by the changes in policy of some of what's happening in America. And many of the cloud companies are American. And so people and businesses in Europe have looked at that and thought, is it possible that an American administration could start to delve into our data, if you like? So one of the reasons I mentioned we're a European business is for that very reason. One of the reasons that we built in Brussels first is for that very reason. We are targeting sovereignty and the importance of where data is and who uses it. How does that link to sustainability? Sustainability isn't just about energy. It isn't just about water. It's also about data. Do you control your data? Does a business control its data? And does a business fail because it doesn't control its data? If it has a data leak, even if that's done by a foreign power, then that can affect a business and it's no longer a sustainable business and it fails. So that's the link between sovereignty and sustainability. It might seem a bit tangential, but it's really important. And we see that already just in the past few years, the number of European businesses that are potentially moving away from American clouds and are looking at European clouds. And so there's a well-known French business that is a cloud business, and I'm sure they're doing really well on the back of that. I know that the EU are starting to encourage other businesses to grow, and you will see those as well. There are things called neoclouds. Some of those are European, and they will be just in Europe. I expect they'll expand further, but that's how it's being addressed.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Thank you. And the next question is actually one I had was, I had a question related to, you presented an example of a digital twin, a dynamic simulation. And my question is, do you combine digital twins with static monitoring, for example, using DKIM tools? And have you moved from simple dashboarding to a more predictive approach?
So our plan with the digital twin is that we will, and we haven't done this yet, is that we will integrate it with live data. And so our data comes from our transformers all the way to the bottom of the rack. So we have building management systems, energy management systems, security management systems, which will all be linked. So if a door opens and closes, we track that. We'll see it in the digital twin. If we're using more energy, we'll track that, we'll see it. Similarly, with the building environment, the cooling. But DSIM itself is, in our terminology, is within the white space where the racks are. And so, yes, that will also be linked, and it will be live. So we will take all of that data, we'll store that data, we'll use it to report back to the EED, we'll report to our customers, and we'll report to our stakeholders, to our investors as well. So it will all be joined up, and that's the plan. We're not there yet, but that's the path we're on with it. Digital twins are quite new, but it's an exciting area of research and delivering new services.
Yeah. The reason why I asked about it is that we have a connection to Schneider Electric, and they are actually also the next speaker in March the 16th coming up, and they will also talk about their experiences with using DKIM, their own DKIM platform.
Yeah, so interestingly, not to try to interrupt you, but Schneider, so we use Schneider's building management systems and energy management systems. So that's EcoStruxure, and we will integrate that with whichever, we haven't yet rolled out our DSIM, but whichever one we choose, we'll integrate that with the digital twin as well. So Schneider are a fabulous company, wide range of products. They have a really deep knowledge of data centers. So that sounds like that'll be a great webinar.
Yeah. The next question is about what kind of internship and apprenticeship possibilities do you offer at the Cavalings?
So currently we've got an intern working for us right now, which is more in the kind of finance end of our business. We have this month, it's not an internship, we have paid work for a university where they provide us 5 of their students as consultants to look at how we might use AI ourselves. So that'll take place over about 3 or 4 months. And the other thing I should say is we don't have a huge, I don't mean to be negative here, but we don't have a huge amount of internships and apprenticeships. We've just opened our first facility in Brussels. To give you an idea of scale, some of our competitors are much bigger. They have many, many internships and apprenticeships. So we have one data center. We're going to scale maybe to 5 or 6 over the next 5 years. But people like Digital Realty have 700. Equinix, 600 data centers. You've got guys like Data4 in Europe. They probably get 10, 15. So in our sector, in our industry, there are many internships and apprenticeships. And I would encourage you through the university or direct to get in touch with the businesses and ask about it, because you'll find it's an open door. People will want to speak to you in our sector. They're really interested.
Yeah, thank you. And the next question is from Malika Chaudhary. Is, as a facility industry professional, what opportunity would you advise for a facility manager, technical, non-technical background? Any upskilling, certification, and training required to enter into the data center industry?
It's an interesting question, because facility management is very close to the facility management in data centers. Because it's a critical environment, then there are maybe more redundancy built in. But many facility managers are looking after buildings all over Europe, which have HVAC, they've got generators, they've got all the equipment that we've got, maybe not quite as much as we have, and maybe not quite the same redundancy as we have. And they maybe not have the same penalties and SLAs if we don't meet our targets. But they have the skills that we're looking for. And so when I look at our building, we have a partner called CBRE. CBRE provide our facilities management teams. We will plug CBRE into what we do in terms of internships and apprenticeships. And the reason that we're going to do that is because they look after thousands of buildings across Europe. And I want to encourage them to take on people that want to get into the data center business, but maybe they can't immediately, but to get into facilities management, because that's the route into what we do. If I was to advise people about how they would move from facilities management into data centers, then I'd be looking at key skills. Key skills right now would be on the electrical side and on plumbing. Plumbing looks at cooling, water cooling technologies. We're going to have a dearth of people that can do that. There is already the highest turnover, believe it or not, in staff right now across Europe in data centers are entry-level technicians. Those are the guys that move the most because there's such demand and their pay scale is going up. And they also like travel, and we're everywhere. You can travel with data centers too. So I think you're in the right sector, you're in the right industry. And I would contend you could probably apply right now.
Can I jump in on that, Lars? A bit of a shameless promotion of the course that we run at Sligo. It's an online 2-year course. We have everybody who's doing it is working in data centers at the moment. A lot of them are just trained, not just, but trained electricians, and they're upskilling and they want to move up the ladder. So this is a 2-year course, as I said, 2 evenings a week, 1 week each year in Belgium with our colleagues at Hella. And that's available, overall cost of €7,200. And I would say an excellent course developed with Google, Microsoft, and Amazon and Facebook. So you can take a look. I'll post the link there, and you can always contact me for more information.
Yeah, thank you, Connor, for the knowledge about this. I'm sure this is one of the best courses in Europe. I was thinking about Mr. Maxwell, when you talked about ESG, there were some job roles where you actually also said that in this area where you are reporting data and you are also collecting the data, there are some jobs coming up in the near future. And seen from an IT educational point of view, what skills what competences do you look for if you want to hire a data analyst?
We're looking for a broad level of experience. Data centers, for a long time, we've kind of siloed the people into specialists. And you mentioned it earlier, Lars. We're now looking for people who have across different disciplines, and those with core skills around data analysis, core skills around knowledge of data centers, but usually somebody will have one focus. It might be power, might be cooling, it might be planning, permitting, whatever it might be, but to have a broad knowledge is really valuable these days. And I kind of lucked into that because I was broad in everything. I didn't have a speciality. And that broad knowledge allows you to understand how all the different elements interlock, and they do. And that's what's really important to understand about data centers. The siloed approach no longer works in our business. People need to understand the entirety of it. I hope that answers that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you. I see that there's a new question popping up from an unknown user. The question is, while data centers house a fair amount of intellectual capital from various sources as digital content, I've heard little on securing the facility from an OT perspective. What's the Kevlin's view on the shared responsibilities in this regards?
Yeah, what's an OT perspective?
I'm sure it's about operating technology, or is it operating system?
I'm not sure. It's either
operational technology. Yeah.
But securing the security is a huge. If it's about security, and it looks to me like it might be securing either the intellectual capital or else the physical, and both are linked. There is a huge amount of security in our facility. So in the physical side, we have 7 different layers of security. So that's before you get to the IT. You've got to pass through 7 different layers. There's biometrics, there's fingerprinting, there's a whole series of different security elements you have to go through. Over and above that, there's then, if you want, the logical layer, that is IT. How do we protect the IT? And we do that by not having links to the internet. We have that by having DMZs, logical and physical, across our environment, so that at no single stage can somebody get through from our systems. But our customers also have a responsibility for their data, and they need to protect theirs logically and physically too. So I hope that kind of covers, when there's a lot of technology in there as well, like switches, routers, actual bits of software that I could go into, but it's quite complex. And I've talked in some of that around DMZs and how you might set up demilitarized zones. That comes from, and we still use that, about how we separate different elements of our business so that our operational part can't be accessed remotely, but we have other routes so that we know what's going on outside. I hope that kind of answers that. I'm not sure it does.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Roy. And if the user needs more clarification, of course, the user is welcome to come up with more questions on that topic as well. Just to, if you have some good advice for students today who wants to get into the industry, what kind of advice would you give to students, no matter if they are facility students or they are IT students?
I think that the biggest thing always is an enthusiasm and in what you do. Somebody that wants to learn. I've never stopped learning. It has been fantastic. Loads of jobs. I mean, I've got friends, and not to be denigrate other roles, but I have a friend who was an accountant, and by the end of his career, hated his job. And I love what I do. And if you can bring enthusiasm and a willingness to work, a willingness to share ideas and work as a team, then it's a great environment. And if you bring just that, you will do really well, because there's huge opportunity. So I wouldn't say you need to learn a specific role or anything, because all those roles are valid. Bring enthusiasm, bring yourself, and be prepared to learn.
Cool. Yeah. On that note, I want to hear if there are more questions from the audience. No, I can't see any more questions in the chat right now. So I will say thank you very much, Roy, and for your insights and all your experience with industry. I think we got a lot of insights that we didn't know about before, and we're really grateful for your speak today. So
not at all. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a great opportunity for me to be able to speak direct to students and hopefully give some of the enthusiasm I've got and hopefully transfer some of that to them. Thank you very much.